Everyone watching this video is making the exact same mistake with Bitcoin. The people with no Bitcoin think they missed it. The people with a little Bitcoin think they're early. And the people sitting on 0.1 Bitcoin think they're safe. They're not. Because what almost nobody understands yet is that in the next decade, 0.1 Bitcoin may end up feeling painfully small compared to the true wealth you could have acquired. So today, I am going to clear up the single biggest issue in this entire space in the simplest way possible. Having even one of these issues is the reason most people end up cutting their wealth potential into fractions. The first problem is that people still think about 0.1 BTC in today's prices. They hear it and mentally convert it into dollars. Bitcoin cares about supply, not about your local currencies. And supply is where this entire thing becomes uncomfortable, because there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, forever. Now divide those coins into slices of 0.1 Bitcoin. That creates 210 million possible pieces. At first glance, that sounds massive, until you zoom out for 2 seconds and realize there are over 8 billion people on Earth. If every human being wanted just 0.1 Bitcoin, 97% of humanity would be locked out instantly. And that math gets even worse when you realize the supply isn't actually 21 million anymore. Millions of Bitcoin are already gone forever. Forgotten passwords, destroyed hard drives, lost wallets sitting untouched for over a decade. Bitcoin has no customer support line, no password reset button. When coins disappear, they disappear permanently, which means the real supply is dramatically lower than people think. And while the available supply keeps shrinking, the demand side is just getting started. That's the part people still don't fully understand. You are no longer competing against random retail investors buying $50 on Coinbase. Now you're competing against institutions with more money than entire countries. BlackRock, Fidelity Investments, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, governments. The same financial system that laughed at Bitcoin for 15 years is now quietly buying as much of it as possible. And every Bitcoin they buy is one less Bitcoin available for everybody else. That changes the entire game. Now pay attention or you'll miss this crucial mistake. People still think Bitcoin adoption looks like this giant dramatic moment where everyone suddenly wakes up overnight. That's not how it happens. It happens slowly, quietly. At first nobody cares, then smart money starts accumulating. Then institutions start packaging it into financial products. Then governments start paying attention. Then suddenly, one day, the average person wakes up and realizes the price has moved beyond reach. That's how every scarce asset works. And Bitcoin is the scarcest major asset humanity has ever created, which means you must be able to get your share before time runs out. Real estate can be built. Gold supply increases every year. Governments print trillions of dollars out of thin air whenever the system breaks. Bitcoin is the only major asset with a supply that is perfectly fixed, which means time affects Bitcoin differently than almost everything else on Earth, because every 4 years something happens called the halving. The amount of new Bitcoin entering circulation gets cut in half. So while demand keeps expanding globally, the new supply keeps collapsing mechanically. That is why Bitcoin moves the way it does, and most people still don't understand what this means long term. They think they're early because they own some. But owning some Bitcoin and owning enough Bitcoin are two completely different things. And here's the next major misunderstanding nobody in this industry wants to say out loud. In the future, 0.1 Bitcoin may be the amount people wish they bought more of when they still had the chance. Not because 0.1 BTC is small today, but because the purchasing power of fiat currencies keeps collapsing around it. Every single year, your dollars buy less. And meanwhile, governments continue printing currency at a speed that would have sounded insane 20 years ago. The US dollar has lost the overwhelming majority of its purchasing power over the last century. That's not an accident. That is how the system was designed. Your money is engineered to depreciate over time. Bitcoin flips that model upside down. That changes human behavior completely. People spend weak money and save strong money. That's exactly why long-term Bitcoin holders almost never want to sell. Once people truly understand scarcity, they stop viewing Bitcoin as a trade. They start viewing it as property, as stored time, stored labor, stored purchasing power. And once enough people reach that conclusion, the available supply becomes microscopic. Which brings us back to the title of this video. Why owning 0.1 Bitcoin sucks. Because it creates a psychological trap. It feels like enough to stop buying, while secretly being one of the most valuable financial positions the average person could possibly improve over the next decade. The danger is not owning 0.1 Bitcoin. The danger is reaching 0.1 Bitcoin and thinking the game is over. because most people still do not understand where this asset is heading if adoption continues. The real question is, what happens when billions of people compete for fractions of a permanently scarce asset? What happens when pension funds need exposure? When corporations need reserves? When governments need neutral collateral? When fiat currencies continue losing trust globally? Because at that point, Bitcoin stops behaving like a speculative tech investment. It starts behaving like digital economic territory. And territory gets
and what's
harder
the
to
end
acquire
game?
over time. The goal is consistent accumulation. That's why owning 0.1 Bitcoin sucks. Not because it's small today, because one day it may not be enough anymore.